Well, that was the three-day summit that ended yesterday. And remember, we did host the ambassador of St. Kitts and Nevis on Business Morning last week. A whole lot happening there now. But talking about food security, yesterday we talked about how women contribute about 75% of food production in Nigeria, and yet access to loan, just about 10%. Now, the federal government is calling for European investment into Nigeria's cold chain infrastructure as part of a broader strategy to address food insecurity. Let's talk about that for a moment. And we have right here, President of She Farmers Initiative, Temitope Andy, here right here. Good morning, Ms. Andy. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Amy. Thank you for having me.
So I guess you've been busy since the last time we talked. Seeing that we're celebrating women, we discover that access to loan is still a major one, in spite of the fact that women contribute a huge part of food production as well as small businesses. Most of the small businesses are run by women. For you in agriculture, in the agriculture sector, has the situation improved? Access to loans? The government is talking about large-scale farming now, mechanized farming. Has your experience improved?
Well, I think what the government has done is actually to scale up food production for sustainability. However, the active participants in that sector are women, and they are in the rural areas, majority of them. Access to finance inclusion, financial inclusion for them is still very low. However, for she farmers, what we've tried to achieve is creating a strong community through cooperative. I've realized that the cooperative is a strong channel for the women to be able to access loans from even the commercial banks and also development banks. So, and for food security as well, the women also need to cluster together. It's no longer business as usual. It will be difficult in this current dispensation to find a Lone Ranger farmer, a woman alone, doing business of agriculture. In the first instance, she's not likely to get funding from the bank. But when you come together, you create a strong community, you create a cluster and a strong cooperative, the bank will also come looking for you. Because the bank is also looking for a comfort to secure the funding. And most times, the bank, the agric sector of the bank are not technically knowledgeable to be able to give funding directly. But with the comfort of a cooperative of a group, it's easy to access funding. So in she farmers, what we've identified is the strength of cooperative to build a very strong community in aggregating funding. And funding is a game of numbers. Let's say we have 10,000 members, and each member is contributing, let's say 10,000 every month. That's a lot of sum. We have that money. We can go to a development bank and request for equity funding. With equity funding, we can fund our women ourselves.
So
we have become our farms ourselves, our banks ourselves.
Because yesterday, I had a guest here who had been in the banking for about 20 years, she said, before she left. And she did rule out some requirements which make it difficult for women to access funds, especially collateral, and then you connect it to the culture and, all the family connections and all of that. So when you go as a cooperative, do you have a different set of requirements that make it easier for cooperatives to access this fund?
Yes, as a cooperative, the bank already knows you're coming in a group, and you also have your own financial strength. So they know you have your funding, and they know you have a proper structure that they can rely on. So that makes it easier to access.
So what kind of requirements are you asked for you to access? For instance, the collateral, which is a major one.
The major requirement is the cooperative will put up a pen to say, oh, I guarantee this person. On most instances, let's say, for instance, for us, we cluster to cultivate maybe like 200 acres of farmland for cassava. We have our technical partners. We've looked at the beginning and the end of the transaction. We know this is how much we need, and we know we have our off-takers, or probably we're adding value to it to sell to a particular client. We take that to them. They have seen the way out of the transaction. Mostly for risk in the bank, they look at the end of the transaction from the beginning. So if they've seen that there's a comfort end, and they're looking at a group who is knowledgeable in the transaction, they will avail. Because the strength of the cooperative also is also a comfort for the bank. Like I said, the cooperative drives the community. Like, for instance, apart from the cooperatives, there's something interesting we also do. We call it Ajo. What I mean by Ajo is, let's say we have 20 members of cooperative, and some businesses, depending on capabilities and your business strength, some might say, oh, I want to do 200,000 every month. I can afford that profit set aside. I can afford 100,000. I can afford 50,000. And cooperative is also a way of saying, pay yourself. Most of our women in businesses, they don't have that culture of paying myself. So the cooperative is like, let me set aside this and pay myself. So we have 10 groups, 15 clusters. Imagine 10 people contributing 200,000 every month. Someone goes away with 2 million naira. And that's a lot to change the narrative. You don't need to go to the bank, apply for a facility, face conditions, and it's even interest-free.
So how do you make it easy for women? Because I hear you say 200,000, but when you talked about the women in the rural areas, how many of them can really afford that 200,000? Doesn't that still put pressure on an individual woman to be a part of the cooperative before she can access the loan we're talking about?
You know, the cooperative is called multi-purpose cooperative. Besides the fact that you're contributing into the cooperative for financial inclusion, there are some transactions that comes to the cooperative that are business-like that will enable you to enjoy from that transaction. And there are times, as a member of the cooperative, we have a request. Maybe 300, 500,000, you want to cultivate your cassava farms, and you don't have the money to buy the input. You come to the farms, we avail you the money. To the cooperative, we avail you the money. We are not saying 200,000 as 200,000 is a different scheme entirely from the cooperative. I told you we call our joy is a side thing aside from the cooperative. We made the cooperative accessible and affordable for our women. 2,000 membership to join the cooperative, and they are all over. We have membership across the country. We have our members in Abuja, we have in Jos, we have in different states, and they are coming together to create that strong community to access funding. Most times, women don't need much.
So how much funding have you been able to access so far through this cooperative?
On ourselves, we've aggregated much, but we have not gone to the bank for any funding. Our objective...
I just want to know really how easy or how accepted you have been as a cooperative to the banks. Because as you noted, and I think everybody knows by now, the bank they are commercial. They want to do business. So they are not there for sentiment. Maybe the Bank of Agriculture, now that they're talking about recapitalizing them, they would be more lenient in their requirements.
The Bank of Agric has been recapitalized. And like I said, the Bank of Agric is also not ready to deal with an individual. They'll be comfortable in dealing with a group and a cooperative. So my appeal and my message this morning is to create a strong financial inclusion for women, is that every group should try and form a cooperative, regardless of the sector where they operate. We're talking about agribusiness. We have a cooperative, a community of over 10,000 membership. For instance, in Lagos State, in Oyo State, in FCT, we have numbers, and the numbers are growing. And we do not, right now as I speak, we don't even, the way we structure our transaction, we don't even need the bank right now, because what we do is we get our members to come and invest in the scheme. They invest in the scheme and they see the end of it, and we move to another scheme. So what we're trying to build, now, you see, you have to take your destiny into your own hands. Because like I said, most commercial banks are not, they are profit-oriented. And I just want to use this opportunity to appeal to the women, because most of our banks are now being in the lead by women. Most of bank managing directors are women.
And they say they are generating some women-friendly policies.
And this is Women's Month, March. So I want to actually appeal to our women MDs that understand the importance of women at home, in business and in the sector, to try and be lenient to the women in terms of creating sustainable products that is accessible by them. Because most times, all the commercial banks have women desk, women this, women that, women bank, but in actual fact, real fact, they are not giving more, women out there are not accessing much of this funding. That's why we're trying to make ourselves formidable too by creating a community of cooperative. Something happened about 3 years ago, I used to be the PRO from Nasima Export Group. Our chairman was Barrister Ware. We went on trade exhibition to Istanbul, Turkey. We came back with export contract. The banks couldn't fund it.
They couldn't, or they did not?
They did not fund it. Because most times they don't even, some staffs of the bank do not understand the dynamics of export. So what we did then was the chairman said, cooperatives, here and there. And we gathered money from different cooperatives to fund the export of hibiscus flower, 10 containers to US. It was successful. And the payment came in, and the cooperatives were paid with income. So you don't wait for banks. You have the easy access to funding and financial inclusion is cooperative. So I want to encourage that people in different sectors, in different categories, different businesses should try and create a sustainable cooperative system for their financial liberation.
Okay. I want to make a plea to you people in the agric sector. So while we are big on increasing our production and all of that, we seem to be losing a whole lot to post-harvest losses because it seems there's no much attention given to the value chain for preservation, for storage, for processing. Is it possible to have a cooperative? You know what I mean? Because numbers have it that about 50% of our production we lose it to post-harvest losses, sometimes moving it from the north to the south where majority of consumption is. We lose a whole lot of that. Is it possible to also prioritize that? That could help this our food security situation.
As a matter of fact, the country is such that each crops concentrate in a particular area. So it's not like they are scattered and they are getting bad along the entire network. Let me give you an instance. In Jos, we produce so much Irish potatoes. Unfortunately, we do not have a processing centers in Jos that will convert our Irish potatoes to the packaged chips we have in supermarket. We still bring them in. So what we are also saying is infrastructure to create value addition for our excess production is very important. And that also can be addressed through the cooperative. Because the bank will not also want to fund a center and, oh, who's going to manage it? No. But the cooperative comes together, and that's what we're doing. We've identified locations that we're working to create that system for value addition, machine processing for commodities. We have Sokoto, where we have abundant supply of onions. Onions preservation is short-lived as well. And there are times when the onions are produced in abundance. When we have it in abundance, we should have machines in those locations to crush the onions, turn them into dry onions, and repackage it and export it. Do you understand? We have a lot of mangoes in Jos, in Kaduna. You go to Kaduna, you see mangoes falling here and there. We've also identified those places for cottage facilities to provide machines. So really, the only way to address this, apart from the cooperative, is having technology. Technology is very pivotal to food security.
So can the cooperative focus on that? I mean, it's also business. There is incentive for it. You talked about exports.
Absolutely. Even in Niger State, where they produce so much yams, you need to go to those locations and see how those yams rotting away. So we are also looking at, we are working with our women across the region to provide those centers. Do you understand? Because the yams now, we can convert the yams into yam flour, called that's poundo yam, in those locations. And the yams are very good. You can imagine having yams, this food, they don't stay for a long time. And then we also try to introduce a storage transportation, such that moving vegetables from the north, from Jos, perishables, in a cold storage down to the market. So we're also looking at that too, through the cooperative.
Please look very closely, because we really need it. I mean, assuming that we don't even increase our production, and yet we close the gaps of those harvests, I mean, we would have a lot of food, and having them off-season is also another one, yeah?
We have associations that are also adding value to that. They're looking at that, providing support for our farmers. So we're working as a team with those associations.
Okay, please. Thank you for that comfort. We hope that it will be accelerated. President of She Farmers Initiative, Mr. Mitokpe Andy, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.